Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio.
Yes, and welcome to another edition of Happy Hour. And I feel like it's really apt to do this today, even though it's not a Thursday. Look behind the curtains. But it's your birthday. And yes. I feel like we should begin, yes, we're beginning our recordings, by celebrating with a drink and saying, happy birthday, Anney.
Thank you. Thank you. You helped make it very, very special. You know, it is odd to have another birthday in quarantine. And I kind of totally forgot it was today until I woke up and I had all these text messages because my friends are lovely. But yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you on this day celebrating.
Yeah, so it is August 24th. Mm-hmm. The day of the birth of Anney, as more aptly put. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we are coming in with another fantastic brand from Freeland Spirits. And by the way, again, we're not sponsored by them. We found them, loved what they were about, and we wanted to talk about what they are doing and also taste their tasty beverages, obviously. Mm-hmm. And today we are drinking some wonderful cocktails. I say wonderful as you and I had to kind of scramble.
Yeah.
Because we talked about this a little before, how we did not have the ingredients we thought.
Yes.
Including
for various
myself.
Reasons. Yeah.
Yes, including the fruit that rotted very quickly. And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. So let's see. We have the dry gin or the Navy strength gin. So it's got the little bit of a kick to it. And what are you drinking, Anney?
So I made pretty much a gin and tonic, but I used some fresh, I kind of swapped out the lime for lemon because I have fresh lemon, and I used some rosemary with it. And I have to say, it's really clean and it's really delightful.
Oh, you know how I feel about rosemary and gin.
Yeah.
One of my favorite combos. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite. And yeah, so I am doing, essentially, I believe it's just a gin fizz.
Ooh.
But with that, what I've done is I muddled up lime juice, lots of blackberries, and basil. Because again, I love herbs and drinks. There's just something to it. Mm-hmm. A little agave. Because if you don't have that agave, it's a little sour.
Right.
Because I think I may have added a little too much lime juice. I'll just put that out there. And then an ounce of this beautiful gin. And then topped it off with some sparkling water to get that fizz, obviously.
Yes.
And Anney, I'm going to show you. I even have a little,
It's a lovely color, everyone. It's like a nice, kind of dark rosy pink.
Yes, it's beautiful, like almost fuchsia level. Yeah. And I garnished it with fresh basil from my garden. And I mean my garden, meaning my boyfriend who has a small cart in front of the apartment that has some basil in it. So,
hey.
It counts, people. It counts.
It does. I'm with you.
And it is a delightful drink. And I will say we've cheated a little bit because we've had this gin for a little while, ready to go. And I've been using it in so many drinks anyway. And it is a great gin, y'all. Mm-hmm. And they are based out of Oregon, Portland, Oregon, to be specific. And from their site, it says the company is named after the owner, Jill Keeler, her Meemaw, Freeland. Which, did you have a Meemaw? What did you have? I had a Mamaw and a Mama Joyce.
I had a grandmother and a gran. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we like the non-traditional. Apparently they're from Texas and Mamaw, that is very Southern, or at least that level to me. And they state they named it after Meemaw Freeland, who, quote, never touched a drop of booze in her life, but taught me that all good things come from scratch and that women can be anything they want. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that, right? Mm-hmm. So the company was started by Jill Keeler and distiller Molly Troop, who is noted to be one of the youngest distillers in the U.S. and youngest to get a master's degree in distillation from Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, which, by the way, the company was founded in 2017 and began in 2017 with this idea of making incredible gin. And they are all about supporting other women in the industry and trying to, as they say, break or bust the glass ceiling within the industry and beyond. They work mainly with companies and suppliers that are women-owned, and they also offer support through their monthly free spirits program. And if you have time, go look at Freeland Spirits or Freeland Gin, and you'll see all the people that are a part of that group. They come together once a month, I think, and do a whole thing, and they get awarded things. They're kind of like given their accolades for doing some incredible work. Who it's not just in the industry, it's beyond in nonprofits and all of that. So it's a beautiful thing. And we love and stand any company that elevate and support other women. So thank y'all for doing such an amazing job and making an incredible gin. In the process, if you listen to any of the podcasts they're on or any of the interviews they have, they do some really innovative stuff. And Molly is a genius, apparently, with all of her knowledge and know-how and understanding and tasting. And according to their site, they said that women have 50% more taste buds. Anney, I feel like you would know. Is this a true story?
You've put me on the spot. I don't know that. I don't know. Mm-mm.
I would have thought, I got you.
Trying to get me.
I could have Googled that myself, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll ask Anney.
I remember we did an episode a while ago about whether, we talked about that in terms of whether women get grossed out more easily, and I can't recall. So this is on me.
I've been there though. Yeah, and they were talking about the fact that she has really great taste buds and able to like pick out specific notes and tasting features. And so that's why she can make this amazing gin. And they do. And they have like several different versions of gin. And then they did a bourbon. They did a collaboration with another woman who came on board and did a bourbon spirits and have been featured for that. And apparently it's really good. So I think that might be next on our list. We'll have to go look it up. And for their tasting notes, Anney, did you actually taste it before?
Yes.
Putting in the alcohol, what was your tasting notes for it?
I thought it was really clean. I love gin. And in fact, you can find a video on YouTube of me making some gin, which was really lovely. But I think it's really clean, but it still also has that like really bright, it's hard to describe. We were kind of talking about this recently because it's almost like winter in a glass, but bright.
Yeah.
So it's like, it reminds me of like healthy evergreen trees while you're breathing that crisp, clean, cool air and looking at like snow-covered mountains. Imagine that in like a glass.
I like it. That was a great description. Yeah, and gin for me mostly has a lot of that juniper, which has a little evergreen taste to it, as you said. And it is very like piney to me, but I think it makes it better. I've heard it described as an old man drink because of the piney, and I love it. And I drank it from the beginning of my alcohol path. Is that a thing? It is now. And from their own notes, it says it leads with juniper and is backed up with notes of pine forest, mulled spice, green olive, and a hint of citrus. With the finish, it's viscous and leaves you wanting more. And then they wrote, for all you rebels defying the odds and breaking through the glass ceilings, we created a Navy strength gin because strong gals deserve strong gin. Agreed. The aromatics are concentrated and bold, tickling the senses with hints of spice, citrus peel, and the ever-present juniper berry. Our women-owned and operated distiller offers the best of the Pacific Northwest in every sip. I think they do a really great job with that. And again, they have just the regular version of their gin. They have this dry gin, which is the Navy proof or the Navy strength gin. And then I think they have one with hazelnut. It's called Geneva gin. From the pictures, there's hazelnuts underneath it. So I'm guessing it has something to do with hazelnuts. And it is a darker color. So who knows? That's a completely different adventure. And I love that. But, as I'm thinking about the basics of their company and what they represent, and essentially it's talking about legacy. And I thought about that for myself and for you, because we've talked a lot about our grandparents and then just, what do we want to leave? What do we want to pass on? And I was just thinking, what is something that you have carried or you carry with you now that comes from the female legacy in your family or the women in your family?
I think I personally, when I remember my grandmother on my mom's side, I feel like what I remember was someone who was very thoughtful and caring and loving and went out of her way to make people feel special or important or remembered or loved. And so she would and we've been talking about this recently, Samantha. I have this thing on my phone called like a profile where people mention like they like this or they don't like this when it comes to food, and I'll make a note. She was like that, where she would be like, every gift she got someone for Christmas, even if it was like a small gift, it had a personal like, oh, you told me this one time, this thing. And she was very giving in that way and in her community. And I think that's how a lot of people remember her. And making like special memories. She was really big about like making something special, no matter if it was a small thing, but making it a special memory. And then on my dad's side, I never met his mother, but I'm named after her. And I recently was going through some papers and I found like a note my dad wrote about how she would feel about me. And it was very, very moving. And she seemed like someone who really enjoyed life and like did all this stuff and was like, always down to try something new and go out and do something. And so I feel like I have that carried on to me, even though I never met her.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's a similarity with the fact that your grandmother and my grandmother were big part of the community in a small town. I think some of the things that I remember and I know, and I've told the story before about the fact that people within like 100-mile radius of our small town knew who she was because they probably had her as a teacher or had crossed her at some point as a teacher figure or a coach, because I think she was a swim coach at one point. Swimming was really important to her. I remember that. We all had to get lessons, and she was very adamant that we knew how to swim, including myself. I think it was also my mom was like, yeah, let her take swimming lessons. But she was very adamant that we did that. But she was also very loving and inviting. Like she made sure no matter how strict she was, and people talked about how strict she was as a teacher, that she still was able to show caring and nurturing. And that's kind of what I know. Again, I was, someone that really, really leaned into having her because she wasn't personal. Like she would never ask too many questions because she didn't want to pry. That's the Southern thing. But she knew that she needed to ask every now and again. And then if it wasn't an answer that made her comfortable, she rushed by it. So it's kind of the etiquette. So I would get asked, are you seeing anyone? Are you dating anyone? When I say no, because the answer was often no, she would say, that's okay. You got plenty of time. You have plenty of time. Which makes me sad because I'm like, I wonder what she would have thought like now because she's passed away since then. And yes, I'm in a relationship now, so she would have been happy about that. But she's also that traditional. It's like when you get married, when you're having babies. So all of that was just, I'm like, nah, none of that may come to pass. So I'm sorry, Mama Joyce. I didn't know my mamaw very well. When I met her, she was kind of already into Alzheimer's and didn't have her personality that everybody else knew. But the one thing she left behind is her Southern cooking. And I will say, when we used to do feasts, in that home, everything was fried and everything was delicious. And I think I told you one of my meal combos, which included having creamed corn, homemade. Everything was homemade, y'all. So it probably came out of the garden, and they had a giant garden. Corn, beans, and then cornbread that was obviously in the skillet. An old cast iron skillet that's, been around for years and years and years. Lard, for sure. There was lard or bacon, something along those lines. And I used to grow up eating what I used to call a hodgepodge, which was mac and cheese, which, by the way, that was never homemade, which I always thought was weird. Mac and cheese, green beans, cornbread, all mixed together. And it was one of my favorite. And for some reason, I still crave it as an adult. And I'll do that for myself.
Sounds delicious.
That was my vegetarian meal. And it's still not that healthy. Obviously, at that point in time, my family did not care about vegetarians. You just starved, or you ate a salad with no dressing, by the way, because it was only like ranch or Thousand Island in that house. But yeah, so those are the things that I do remember. And I hope that one day I can give that same sense of feeling. Of course, you and I have talked about the fact that the likelihood of us having children is very low. That's not something that's ever motivated us, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, not something that's been like prominent things that we want. But what is something that you think you want to leave behind? Obviously, we're putting in a pretty big imprint/footprint as we leave behind with just having this being recorded, I guess, and having visibility more so than the regular person. What is something that you do want to leave behind as a woman in this industry and as just in life?
Ooh, I think I want to leave behind, if like anytime, I know it sounds really cheesy, listeners, and we say it a lot, but really anytime anyone writes and says like, thank you, I felt so alone, or I didn't know that there's nothing, that this existed and there's nothing wrong with me. And any message like that, like makes my world, like it makes this worth it? Because I know what that's like when you do feel that way and having that kind of moment of, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. It's okay. I think leaving that behind and then also like hopefully inspiring people or making people realize like you can do this too. And for the next generation, you can be that voice. And not that we're the only voices out there, but you could be a voice for someone else who's listening and feels alone. And as our issues shift and our society shifts with what we're worried about, what we're dealing with, some things are obviously going to be there forever, I think. But that you can do that too for somebody. It doesn't have to be through a podcast. There's a lot of ways to do that.
Right. And we talked about that too before.
Yeah. So I think that, and then hopefully some sort of realization of like the difficulty between accepting yourself and also struggling with not accepting yourself, but loving your loves of fan fiction, but also going out and hanging out with friends and making those connections with people. And I think on a personal level, because I'm not planning on having kids at this very moment, I just hope that the people in my life were positively impacted overall and that they can take that and spread that to the people in their life, or, just making people's lives better, I guess. I hope.
Right. And I think for me, it's just as simple as the things that I know from the people who I admire, women I admire in my life. And the biggest thing is that people feel loved, like no matter what, that the people who didn't feel that before, maybe they did, or feel supported in general, and that they can find healing in whatever it is. I think that's part of the reason I did what I did for so long.
Yeah.
Part of that is also guilt and feeling like I had to pay back because I ended up okay. Also, I think part of that is being able to admit that I have changed and grown. I want to be able to say that's a positive instead of a negative. Like, it's not that you're wrong and had to correct, but you can admit when you were wrong or your ideas were not fully formed, and now you're becoming better understanding what is happening in the world, and that it's okay to have a change of opinion, especially for the better, and if it shows love and it shows growth. And I hope that's something that we can talk about on as being very honest and open and kind of an open slate for others. Like, we've gotten many things wrong in the past, and coming out and saying, okay, here's what it is, and we're going to correct it in the best way to not disturb and or not make the situation worse, which I feel like doesn't happen often, especially in this day and age. No one wants to admit they're wrong. Also, people thinking they're smarter than others just because they have Google. We want to be able to continue to grow and learn. And hopefully we can teach that we are also growing and learning. And this job, I think I've told you, and I've tweeted about the fact that it feels like I'm back in college, trying to redo all these research things. And I've not had to do this in so long. So relearning that. But it is an amazing feeling to grow and to better understand a situation. And I hope that's a legacy that's what we're all doing and what we all should continue to do. And things do change as more information comes. We should be willing to hear and be open to that. But I feel like that would have been something my grandmother would have said too, because she loved that. She loved learning new things. Of course, change is hard. Yeah. But she was open to love. And that's kind of that whole level. And I just want to say cheers to all those who gave us good advice and gave us something to carry on. Cheers to Meemaw Freeland for inspiring those to support and do more and to do anything they want. Yeah. That is plausible. That is. And also go back if you want to look at what Freeland is doing. They offer, like we said, bourbon. They have canned drinks that we may need to look into. Is canned gin and rose tonic, and then a French 75. So we need to go look into that. Yes. And cheers to y'all. Let us know what you have learned from your grandmother or people in your life who have been big influences. Let us know. We love stories like that. Yes. Please, please, please let us know. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff Mom Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina. Also a legend. Yes. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.